Joseph Campbell, the scholar famous for observing the similarities in most human mythology, included in his writings and discussions the death of the hero's master, the teacher who trains him for his quest, as a significant element of the hero's journey. To cite a well-known modern example, one heavily influenced by Campbell's writing, Obi-Wan Kenobi trains Luke Skywalker and then dies. Then Yoda trains Luke, and then Yoda dies. In each case, Luke is compelled to reach a new level of competence in his Jedi skills because the master is gone and he's on his own. This is a retelling of thousands of ancient stories from many cultures in which the departure or death of the teacher advances the hero's quest. It is, after all, a fundamental human experience. Most of us have had to say goodbye at some point to our mentors, teachers, parents, grandparents, either because they died or because that time in our life ended. Some of us have buried the brothers who mentored us in this community. And so I find the story of Elijah's departure from the world and from his protege Elisha to be one of the most moving in Scripture. You probably recall the prelude to the story, not included in today's reading, in which Elijah tries to discourage Elisha from coming along, to no avail. Elisha, who is like Luke Skywalker, a farm boy, sees what's coming. And then two different groups of prophets tell Elisha that the Lord will take his master. And Elisha responds, "Yes, I know. Be silent." Clairvoyance is not clairsentience. They can see Elijah's fate, but they are oblivious to Elisha's feelings about it. Elijah parts the Jordan River, Moses style. After he and his student have crossed it, he asks Elisha what parting gift he can give him. Elisha asks for a double share of Elijah's spirit. And suddenly, in a story in which every character can see the future, the master prophet can't. You have asked a hard thing. Who do you think I am, Elijah? Today we commemorate John Cassian, a monk and mystic in the 4th and 5th centuries. God bless Johnny Cass. Born in present-day Romania, he went to Egypt as a young man and sought out the desert fathers and mothers to learn from them. Evagrius was a key figure among Cassian's many teachers in the desert. Cassian was involved in a theological conflict around the turn of the 5th century and fled to Constantinople for his safety, where John Chrysostom took him under his wing, eventually sending him on a mission to Rome. From Rome, he moved on to Gaul, present-day France, where he founded monasteries for both men and women. By this point, Cassian was in the later half of his life and a mentor himself to many younger monastics. He started writing, sharing the wisdom he had learned from the desert monastics, codifying their take on ascetic life. Pass on what you have learned, as Yoda tells Luke. His work influenced Benedict's rule, Ignatius Loyola's writing, and even our own Gregory. After assuring Elisha that he will be granted the double share of his spirit if he sees him being taken away, Elijah ascends to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha sees the chariots of Israel and its horsemen and cries out. Now, I'm sure that scholars have a definitive interpretation of this, but this has always struck me as a somewhat ambiguous ending. I think we're meant to understand that Elisha did see enough of Elijah's departure to be granted that double share. The other prophets seem to think so. And yet Elisha rends his clothing in two, a ritual act of grief. Did he do so because he didn't receive the double share? Maybe only a single share? Or simply because he is grieving his teacher? Or maybe he tears his clothing as a way of saying, what do I do now? What did I ask for? What am I supposed to do with a double share of Elijah's spirit? Losing a mentor shakes you up. It is a profound and primal thing. It pushes us way out of our comfort zone into a sink or swim reality. Apart from the shock and grief of death, understanding what we have learned or inherited can be intimidating. Many of us have at times perceived ourselves as falling short of the example set by our mentors. Or we have seen more than we might have liked of our mentors reflected in the mirror. Elijah could be pretty cranky when he was hungry and tired. Did I inherit a double share of that? Cassian really got around. From Eastern Europe all over West Asia and North Africa to Western Europe. He learned from masters as much as he could about monasticism, honed that information into instruction, and then shared it widely with his students and followers. He was unafraid of following God's call wherever it led. Or perhaps, as I often discuss with my children, he was brave despite being afraid. An essential tenet in John Cassian's work is the necessity of community in monastic life. Cassian believed that while asceticism was the way to divine union, the support of a strong community living a common rule of life was necessary to achieve that goal. And so in a way, we have John Cassian to thank for our own community. Even those of us who are introverts are brothers rather than solitaries or hermits. We recognize, like Cassian, that we need the support of this community to keep us walking closely with God. We need communal prayer and song, the fellowship of jokes, stories, and snacks, and the challenging conversations, openness and vulnerability, and thoughtful, clarifying questions as we puzzle out how to live the rule together and individually, as we grow and change together. During our exercise this morning, it occurred to me that this homily, the connection I'm trying to make between John Cassian and Elisha's reaction to Elijah's departure, is less about mentors and grieving them, and more about change itself. Change shakes us up. It is hard, scary, overwhelming, and often mournful. Change can be death. Change can also be resurrection. Change can bring grief and pain, and change can bring grace and joy. Elisha took the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him and struck the water, saying, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" When he had struck the water was parted to the one side and to the other, and Elisha went over.